century is Pope John Paul II. That's who I is kind of my personal hero of the 20th century, is Pope John Paul II. And Pope John Paul II was the first non-Italian pope in 500 years. Where was he from? He was from Poland. Okay? When he went to Poland, after he became the pope, on his first trip to Poland, he shows up to do a mass. 2 million people show up. Now, what do you think John Paul II thinks of the communists? Do you like communism? No, okay. Communism is a godless, oppressive ideology. And here's a guy who is a believer in human freedom and in the fact that human beings have dignity because they are made in the image of God. And Pope John Paul II, I will never forget this guy, is the biggest stud in the world. He's sitting there, and he's standing there, and he's having a press conference with the leader of Poland. His name was Jeff, he was the exact name on it. And, he's standing there, and it's supposed to be this kind of pleasant gathering where it's welcoming the Pope. And what happens is John Paul begins to lecture the leader of Poland about oppressing solidarity. And he starts telling him, starts threatening him. He says, you know what? If you do not allow solidarity to exist, if you do not allow these people to have a voice, I will give up my papacy. I will resign as Pope, and I will come back and lead a revolution as the head of my people. Now, give them the right to vote. Guess what? They vote. I mean, you guys see why John Paul is so important, folks? I mean, this guy was, if there's anybody who was close to God to me, this guy was just extraordinary. And by the way, you do know that he was shot. And the bullet came within a millimeter of his heart, and he almost died in 1985. And guess who tried to kill him? Guess who sponsored him? So, Poland was not trying to kill him with their own son. The Soviet Union, the communists tried to have him shot. And he was killed. He was shot in 1985. And the bullet came within 1 millimeter of an artery in his heart, and it would have killed him had it gone 1 millimeter to the left or to the right. And I'll never forget that he was in the hospital for a long time, and he got out of the hospital, and the first thing he did was he went to the cell of the man who shot him to forgive him. That is pretty extraordinary, don't you think? As a matter of fact, this gets really spooky and kind of mystical and religious and kind of, I don't know if you care about this. Have you guys ever heard of the 3 secrets of Fatima? Okay, some of you, 3 secrets of Fatima, very famous, very famous. In the hills of Spain in the early 1900s, these 3 children were running through the hills outside of Barcelona. You see a vision of the Virgin Mary. The Virgin Mary tells them that there are 3 things that are going to happen in the 20th century. The first one, or the 2 of the children die as children. The last one, a woman becomes a nun. Okay, and what happens is, of course, she goes and she tells the church what she saw, and these 3 secrets were all about things that would happen in the next 100 years, something like that, right? The first one was World War II. The second one was the Holocaust. The third one has been shrouded in secrecy for 100 years. The Catholic Church would not let out what the third secret of Fatima is. They would not release it because for whatever reason, they didn't want anybody to know what the third secret of Fatima is. And so, I'm not boring you with this. And so they would never release it, right? Well, in 2001, early 2001, the church releases the third secret of Fatima. And what they said the third secret of Fatima was that a pope in white linen, which was Pope John Paul, would be shot. Right? They said that was the third secret of Fatima. Okay, so we're done with all these secrets. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of anticlimactic, but whatever. 5 months later, it's really weird. 5 months later, I go on a cruise with my wife. We've only been married for about a year and a half. 2 years we've been married. We didn't have any kids yet. And so we go down on this really wonderful cruise to the Southern Caribbean. We go to Barbados, Antigua, St. Martin, beautiful places in the Caribbean on the cruise. And, on cruise ships, you don't get to just sit with the 2 of you. You don't get to sit like at a big table. we don't know. And, you always, you go with friends, or you go with your wife, or your girlfriend, boyfriend, both, I don't know. Nowadays, but anyhow, people go to the people. Well, there's this guy at our table, big, full haircut, and just by himself, totally by himself. No kids, no girlfriend, no wife, no nothing. Kind of weird. And he didn't even say much. He was very quiet over dinner, never said much. Finally, last night, I started talking to this guy. Turns out the reason why he doesn't have a wife is because he's a Catholic priest. And he's a Catholic priest, and he's way up in the Catholic Church. And so, when you're talking to somebody, you're trying to find common ground. I said, I read a few months ago about how the third secret of Fatima was released. I said, it's kind of interesting. And he got very quiet again. And I said, what? He said, well, I shouldn't say that. I said, well, what? Go ahead. Come on. I won't tell you. He's like, well, because that was a very, very, very small part of the third secret. He said, the bigger part, the big thing about the third secret, they didn't believe, and they're not going to believe it. I said, well, what is it?